Welcome back, everybody, to the Revolution of Being. Today, Angie and I want to talk a little bit about vulnerability and imposter syndrome and this idea that kind of haunts a lot of different people in a lot of different walks of life. Angie and I are both business owners. We've been in business. I've been in business for about 5.5 years on my own. And Angie, you're just a little bit less than me, but really close in the same. We're under 10 years in business by ourselves. And we talk a lot about the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows. Both of us are people who work with people. We help humans help themselves. And in that, it always pushes us to better help our own selves. But the trap we can sometimes get caught in, and we were just talking about this, is I don't know if I'm worthy to be able to help people because I have my own areas where I struggle. And sometimes that's around scarcity and it's around the things that we seemingly can't overcome. The fear of not making enough money, or maybe we don't know as much as we should or we think we should know. So who are we to come in and help other people through the exact same thing? And I felt this was a really relevant conversation right now for those that are listening, whether you're a leader in a business. I deal with a lot of people that deal with this within their own business. I have staff and they look to me and I feel very unqualified to lead. Who am I? I'm a mess over here. People don't see that, whatever. It's also people who who cannot get out of their own way when it comes to making a change in their life. A lot of times it comes from to make the change, I have to get to a place of vulnerability. And I don't want people to see, that side of me or, am I worthy of making that change? So we hold ourselves back. We keep ourselves small. So I want to dive into vulnerability and I'm gonna ask you, Angie, because I'm gonna do this too. I think for our audience, I think what people need a lot more of right now is authentic people. And I think people need to hear that even people they see that glossy image of, that they struggle sometimes. So I'm gonna let you kind of take it away and maybe just share a little bit about like how you see this, how this kind of thing impacts you on a day-to-day basis as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's so personal. And you and I talk about this a lot in the respect of with social media, with all these influencers, with, being surrounded by highly successful people often, it's super easy to get into comparisonitis. And I think there are some people that were born and bred to be an entrepreneur. That was never me. I mean, I was indoctrinated into the idea of you go to high school, graduate, go to college, get your 9 to 5, work until retirement, retire at 65, and that's life. I know so many people who were like, I was born to be an entrepreneur from the age 7. I was, peddling candy bars at school or whatever. Like people just have it in their blood. That was never me. I have been someone who has craved structure. I have craved predictability, and yes, you could say a lot of that's a trauma response or whatever, but that's, who I've been for so many years. And so when I made the move from healthcare into entrepreneurship, that was a massive jump for me, and that was absolutely terrifying. And I will be honest, it is still terrifying. I am 3 years into business ownership, and a lot of days I am still fucking terrified. And I still compare myself to others thinking I should be at a certain point or, seeing others who are a year or 2 into their business just having incredible amounts of success. And it's super easy to compare my journey to theirs. And yet we have very different callings and we have very different backgrounds that allow us to be special in our own right. Um, but it's really hard. We were just talking before we recorded, and the psychological impact is so much harder than anything I could physically go through. And so psychologically continuing to overcome these feelings of not being worthy enough, not being good enough, not being, who am I? I'm just a former nurse. Like, what do I know about XYZ? like I've had to learn so much in the last 4 years about business ownership, about everything that I do now, but it's also been beautiful because it's been my own evolution that, my clients and my friends are seeing in real time. But what they don't see is the conversations you and I have where I'm crying and saying, I don't know that I can do this much longer. I'm about to break. I don't know how to get through this next month, this next week. And those are the conversations that people don't have. You see this shiny image of somebody on Facebook or on Instagram or on TikTok, and it looks like they have their shit together. And if you're like me, I feel like most days it's difficult. It's not, I have great days in being a business owner, and that's why I continue to do what I do, because there are beautiful highs, but there are some of the darkest, deepest lows I've ever had that I never had as a nurse because I wasn't challenging myself. I wasn't moving out of the comfort zone. And I think when you step into not only a personal development lifestyle, a spiritual path, and then business ownership, it is the most intense growth journey ever. And I'd say this kind of jokingly, but kind of serious. If I knew what I signed up for 5 years ago, I don't know that this is the path I would have taken, because this has been so unbelievably difficult, but also the most beautiful experience as well. And without having taken that leap and continuing to put a foot forward every day, I would not be happy in a different capacity in my other, opportunity of like a timeline of life. And so, this idea that, any of us have it together is an illusion. And, with every level of success that I've hit, the challenges have gotten bigger. And a lot of them are the psychological challenges. I'm bumping up against every limiting belief I have. And these are the things I coach my clients on. So talk about imposter syndrome when I'm coaching you on limiting beliefs, but I have my own I'm up against. But what I can offer is that I'm going to be authentic with you and tell you I've got a bunch of my own bullshit I'm dealing with, and it's hard. And it is, again, not easy. And I wouldn't be here if I didn't have my tribe of people who understand this. And this is not something that, if you're not a business owner, you're not going to understand. And my husband and I have gone toe to toe on these conversations because, he is in a career where he works for a company and he's very happy and he's very, satisfied with where he's at. And, I chose a different path. And yet, he doesn't understand what it's like to do that. And, kind of wants to offer support, yet, um, it's such a mind fuck continually. And that's not to say it's all bad. Again, I just want to say there's so much beauty to it that I'm discovering depths of myself I never would have discovered had I not taken the sleep. And I've met the most incredible people. My best of best friends are fellow business owners at this point, because there is a sense of kinship that I can't share with someone who's not on this path. And that's not even just to say business ownership, but someone who's not on a personal growth path, who's actively seeking every day to make themselves better, to challenge their limiting beliefs, to look at their shadows with honesty and say, like, here's where I'm being a victim in my life. Here's where I'm not being 100% accountable, where I hold other people accountable. And that's a different level that I don't think the majority of people can relate to. And even other business owners, there's a lot of complacency in business too, where people are just kind of coasting because business is good and they just want to get by. And I think you and I strive for excellence. We know that we are destined for very big things, but along that path, the challenges have been astronomical, that the version of me 5 years ago would have been crippled. There's no way in hell I could have handled and withstood what I've been through in the last couple of years had it not been this progression of things building up to who I've become now.
Yeah, I agree. Business ownership is something really near and dear to my heart. I sit in a position where I am a business owner. I've also managed staff in my past. So I've had to be in a position where I had to learn how to be a leader. And I coach my clients on being effective leaders, but way beyond that. I'm trying to help them get to know themselves on an intimate level. And so much of this comes back to that. It's the first step I always say is, do you know yourself? And can you apply what you know about yourself? or is it kind of running the show in the background? Right? So it's either going to be your strength or your struggle. So how do you apply it? But the next part is, can I change it? And that's where we kind of disconnect with this vulnerable side of ourselves. So what that really means is when I'll use myself as an example. I help mostly small business owners develop themselves as leaders, as people. It's like therapy in a big sense. And I can recognize within them the vulnerable parts that they don't want to go to. That they don't want to talk about them. I can recognize it. And the reason I can recognize it is because I have them. So this is where vulnerability gets to be your greatest asset. I have the same fears. I have the same struggles. I wrestle with them all the time. I don't have staff, partly because I don't need staff. I don't want staff. I know how hard it is. I don't want to have to conform to be a leader while I'm helping other people overcome their leadership hurdles. Will it happen? Yeah, probably, in my life sometime. But I completely recognize how hard their job is. And so the reason I bring this up is because this is our opportunity for vulnerability. I get places with myself when I go, you know what? I'm really struggling with this. And I don't care if you don't like me because I am. It's like there's this freedom within being vulnerable. And I think that other people connect to you better. So when I have that, I notice that people connect with me better. They're like, oh, thank God I'm not the only one. Because the key isn't overcoming the vulnerability. It's not overcoming it necessarily, it's seeing it. And it's being able to say it. And it's being able to talk about it. It's being able to connect with other people who then can turn around and do the same thing. So the problem with our our life as we perceive it, the world of Pinterest, right? The glass of social media, these people that look like they're just massively successful. You see all the perfection in front of you, the massive success, the private jets, the hanging out, they're doing all these things. That is not real. I've worked with all these people. It's not real. It's not real. So stop thinking that that is your measurement for success. I get the opportunity to get to know people on that next level, and I know myself on that level. And so I can say on one hand, I've had massive success for being in business for 5 years. I've seen great things and I've seen really hard things. My clients are the same. They're exceptional people. And the more that I see them open up and let go and release and get vulnerable, I have more clients cry than I ever expected that I would have cry. But then I see them do remarkable things. Because once you get to that place of deep vulnerability of, I'm really struggling here, and I'm questioning whether or not I'm like, I wasn't, like you said, like I wasn't born to do this. Everybody is born to do it. Everybody is born to do it. It's not about being equipped with the right characteristics. It's about deeply knowing yourself and your characteristics and using them to your best advantage. But you can't do that without getting vulnerable, because you're going to have to look in every nook and cranny, all of your past experiences, your lived experiences, losing people, ending relationships, any kind of abuse, you're going to have to look at it all. And so pretending that those things don't exist and that all that's here is just a super shiny person and I've overcome all my obstacles, that's just a bunch of bullshit. That's nobody. And if it is somebody, they're not real. That's AI. That's AI. So I went on a little bit of a tangent, but there's so much I want to talk about in regards to this because we're all deeply misled about what success looks like. And I think we're coming out of an era where vulnerability was looked at as weakness. You're called a victim. This whole idea of being a victim, guess what, guys? You're not a victim if you recognize victimhood. Meaning, if you say, I don't want to be a victim, you're not a victim. You're overcoming that mindset, which means you're knowing yourself at a greater level. You're getting vulnerable because people who aren't victims are very, very able to get to that next level of self and say, this is my role in this. That takes you out of being it's done to me instead of it's happening because I'm involved in a relationship with my environment in this way.
Yeah, and that's such a great point with the victimhood, that's something that you and I are very mindful of, when things are happening. And I'm a former control freak. That was a safety mechanism for me, was to maintain this illusion of control. And the last year is breaking me of that. Everything that could go sideways in my life has been topsy turvy. And it is brutal. It is absolutely brutal to have all of these things come up, friendships being lost, significant financial impacts that have sidelined me, questioning everything. And, yet looking at it and saying, okay, there's a bigger purpose for all of this. And this is making a character within me, um, or the character in me stronger, more resilient, more able to handle life at a bigger level that the Angie 5 years ago could not have even fathomed. And, I think that is the reflection we all have to have is, and I don't fully understand that here's a vulnerable moment. I'm in the throes of a lot of stuff right now that's been really hard. And I've been surrendering it over and over and over. I know what to do, air quote. Like I know the right things to do, which is to not push against the resistance, which is to continue to surrender, to cry it out, to do whatever. And it's gotten harder. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this isn't how this is supposed to work. I'm doing everything I should do. And yet there's a lesson in there still. And yet in that, I do get frustrated. I do cry. I do want to give up. I will find my little happy ass looking for jobs because that feels safer to me than continuing to trudge in the unknown. And that's when I know it's hit a very deep point of insecurity in me. When I find my little ass on LinkedIn Jobs or Indeed, Angie's really in a dark place of deep, deep work. And that's the reality we don't talk about is what is it? What is your tell? Like I know my tell. When I am deeply challenged, that's what I find myself defaulting to. Okay, I can just go back and get a job. I can just plug myself back into the matrix, have a secure life, have it be easy, not have to work so hard, not have to do all this introspective work. And yet my soul is like, bitch, that's not it. Like, that's not what you're going to do here. And I'll have my little hissy fit and then I'll surrender again and be like, okay, fine. I know, fine. And I'm in that actively and I coach on mindset, yet I have my own battles with mindset. And that is every level of success you achieve or every level of growth you're going through, the challenges get harder and deeper and more difficult. It's like, how much can I take before I break? And again, I have my tantrums. I have my freakouts where I'm like, fuck this. Like, you have given me every goddamn test in the world. How much more can I take? And, I've had these moments of complete breaks where I'm just so over it. And yet, there's that little ounce of me, the little stubborn girl that can use it for good, who's like, this is not how this goes. Continue to surrender, trust the process. And I think on a collective level, a lot of us are going through that right now. We're challenging the norms. We're challenging, even as we look at mentors and business coaches and people who we look up to, like, it's great that that worked for them, but that's not our path necessarily. It's great that that's what success looks like for them. But success to me might just be feeling safe in my skin, like, and not continuing to be triggered back into old wounding, right? That might be my success. Or it might be, a level of financial abundance because you came from such poverty that that's a success metric, but it's different for every single person. And I don't think it's one sided though either. And, again, to echo what you said, this idea of what we see on social media, or even anywhere around us, we don't know what people are dealing with behind the doors. And if we could all sit down and have an honest conversation about what we're going through, it would make this so much more relatable. And I think even if I'm in a dark place, I am not on social media, in part because my energy is not there. I don't want to spread that. But also, like, the times I have been vulnerable, it's been met with a lot of receptivity of like, thank you for being honest. I'm feeling this too. People want to feel heard. And, I had a client I had talked to recently who is going through her own very deep transformation and had said she was feeling this call to post this online and just ask, are people experiencing this too? Here's what I'm going through. And I was like, yes, people are craving that, because when I see those posts, I'm like, yes, me too. Thank you for calling it, but I was not wanting to share my own journey, or maybe, out of fear of how it would look unpolished or whatever. And it really doesn't do anybody any good. And it's not to say we're going to all sit here on the struggle bus together and bitch about how difficult our lives are, but to say, like, I see you, you've got this. Like, let me know how I can support you. And I will tell people that all the time. Like, you don't have to hire me. Like, drop me a DM if you like just need a quick like pick me up, like, yes, there's gonna be boundaries. I can't, carry on conversations for days on hand. But like, if you just need someone to acknowledge you, I will be that person. And, I have people that will randomly message me and they're just like, thanks for what you posted. I needed to hear that. And it's like, I'm glad that was helpful. Like, I hope you're doing okay. And especially those on a spiritual path, this is not the path um of ease. And I heard something on a podcast this morning that I loved was, you could be a spiritual person but not be awakening. And that is so fucking true. There are plenty of spiritual people who are not awakening. And what I mean is awakening to the illusions, awakening to their shadows, awakening to the need for their own healing. And you hit the nail on the head earlier. You had said something to the effect of, I think this was before we recorded, but, you know, like the illusion of healers. I have been so opposed to outsourcing. I have people, you should get Reiki. You need to go see this person. You need to go see this person for a channeling session. And to the core, my body is a hell no, because that's outsourcing what's already within me. Like, I have to get quiet within to receive the answers. I can't put that on another healer. And I will tell you, this last week, I'm like, maybe I should just call up a friend. I know plenty of very gifted, healers and psychics. And then I was like, no, Ange, it's not what you need. You have to tune in first and you'll get it in time. And trust me, my timeline is not the cosmic timeline. And that pisses me right the fuck off. But that's a test of my patience. I'm having to learn patience as well. And so this idea of outsourcing that knowingness within, it's like you have to do that work yourself. You have to discern yourself. You have to, if you're going to choose a mentor, tune into your heart to know that that's the person that might be able to help you get to the next level. Because I'm also not going to say mentorship is not valuable. I've had mentors that have changed my life. They were placed in my life at the right time. But I can also tell a difference when I'm like desperately wanting answers and outsourcing my power versus craving that next level growth someone can help with.
Yep. So this is a great, that was a great segue to this point. Vulnerability doesn't necessarily mean, okay, I'm just going to expose all my dirty laundry to the entire world. That isn't what vulnerability is. Vulnerability has to come after a little bit of discernment. It's very important to feel safe. I have personally been vulnerable with the wrong people and have ended up really getting my psychological state backwards, and it did more harm than good. So again, mentorship, coaches. I work with people all the time, and in a, eventually it gets to be kind of a personal capacity, but I want them to trust me first. Like, I don't, there are some people that will open up at different levels early and then some are a little bit later, whatever it is. But I encourage people, you've got to discern it because your energy is real. And being vulnerable means you're giving a very special energy to someone else. I mean, think of it on the level of sex. It's very intimate, it's very deep. You're giving away a portion of your energy. That's your power. And so know where to keep that and protect it and know where to give it. And so to your point, we were talking about healers and this idea, and there are a lot of quote unquote healers in the world, and some of them are beautiful souls. We know them, and they help you help them help yourselves, right? They assist you in helping yourself. That's a healer. But there are people, and I think this is getting exposed on a global scale, that have siphoned the energy of other people in the name of I'm a healer. And they have done really terrible things because guess what? That kind of polarity exists and it can't be taken from you. You have to give it away. So you've got to learn how to discern that. And that's where you always got to come back to yourself. Vulnerability is very, very important. Having community where you feel safe is very important, but you're never gonna understand that fully until you understand what unsafe looks like, right? Until you learn how to follow those instincts of this is where I should share and this is where I should maybe protect that energy. So really, I think you said it really well. We want the mentorship and the coaching. Obviously, that's what we do. But don't just follow anybody blindly and don't just give away your power. We're learning this on a massive scale. We talk a lot about RFK coming in, and it's really interesting watching the news headlines lately. Like, I'm watching people get really upset about certain things, and it's evidence that people have farmed out their power. They've been vulnerable with our medical industry, we've been vulnerable with everything. Like we farm out our joy, we farm out our health, we farm out every single thing, and we're being asked to take it all back in. So while we're talking about this idea of vulnerability, just know this isn't us saying just stand naked in front of the world and tell everybody everything. That is absolutely not the case. It's going to have to be discernment, but don't pretend.
Yeah. And, as you said, be mindful of who you share things with. You and I have both been in situations where we felt we were in a safe space and have shared things, and it's been used against us. And that also helped further trigger our discernment. Like, yep, I was picking up on something in the beginning and I just didn't pay attention. And, I had an incident very early on in my awakening where I very quickly had to, um, tap into my discernment multiple times within the first year of my awakening. And the first time I went against my intuition and I understood that was what that was. The second time I caught on when so many other people didn't catch on to what I was feeling. And in the end, my intuition was validated about an experience and a person and a lot of stuff happening. And I think, a red flag to watch out on with any mentor, healer, coach is it the creation of dependence. If that person makes you in any way believe that you need to be a part of a recurring program to grow, to evolve, to ascend, run the other fucking way. That was a part of a program I was in when I first woke up. And man, it's insidiously it's dangerous. That's like the making of a cult kind of shit right there. When you have people saying, you need this to grow, continue to stay in my circle. And if you're not one of us, you're not a part of the family. As with healers too, you need to have Reiki every week. Otherwise, you can't do this yourself. You need to, see a channeler for this stuff because you can't do that yourself. The best mentors, healers, coaches out there help you see that within yourself so that you can grow. And I've had some beautiful mentors. You and I have some mutual friends who I had taken a spiritual development course with them. And they had said, our hope in teaching you is that you become even more advanced, more skilled, more talented than we will even reach this lifetime. That is a green flag to a mentor who's saying, I hope that beyond this class, you excel so far and can come back and teach us. That's huge. Not this dependence on if you're not here, you're losing out. If you're not here, you can't achieve this. And so again, that's discernment, and I've had plenty of experiences with kind of that dark stuff, but I had to have that to understand the polarity of the light. And there's so much of that right now, as you mentioned, being exposed. And even within the politics, all of it. It does not matter what side you're on, or if you don't take a side, whatever. It's really bringing it back to, but you are your own sovereign being. Irregardless of what's happening around you, you have a right to your own sovereignty. You had said something to me yesterday about, I forget how you phrased it, but we have rights inherent within us that, you know, are ours, are our sovereign rights. And this illusion that rights are being taken away is strictly an illusion. So if you think that any certain political leader is going to be a savior, you're farming out your rights. Now, could things be a little bit easier if our food system was fixed? If, we had a healthier population? Absolutely. Then that's my hope, with or without a political, person moving agendas forward. That's what I want for people. But, and even without things changing, you and I still have the education and awareness to know how to shop for ourselves to make healthy choices. We live in a country where there's a lot of toxins around. We are choosing to live here. We're not victims. We could freaking move to another country, but we're choosing not to. And I think there's a reason for that, because a lot of us are being called to anchor that here, to anchor that light, to anchor that power, to really reclaim that sovereignty within a population of people who are very sick, who are unaware, who are not quite there yet. I think there's a lot of emerging leaders who understand they're being called to step up to help people in this transition, whatever it looks like.
And you will know the leaders by their vulnerability. And you will know who they are by their vulnerability, because they're the ones that aren't going to stand up on a stage and gloss over every flaw they have. They are going to let it show. They're going to say, I don't always know, but I'm willing to figure it out. They're going to say, I've made mistakes and this is how I worked through them. They're the ones that are going to say, I still struggle with certain things. That's how you're going to know a good leader from a not so good leader. And that's how you're going to know who to pick and who to choose to be vulnerable with. So look for vulnerability in other people in healthy ways to help guide you on A, how to be vulnerable, but B, who to be safe with in your own vulnerability, because this is sacred energy. It really, really is, but it is the way forward, because everything done in the dark is going to be exposed to the light. So find your comfort with your vulnerability. Know you are worthy of being seen, and learn how to discern where to put that. This was another great episode, Angie. And I know it's something we're going to continue to talk about, because it's so important to the evolution of us as beings. It certainly evolves the business owners that I work with and their businesses. And I know it evolves your own clients. It's the ability to really get deeply vulnerable within ourselves.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Take care.